All right, what is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman, folks. My name is Steven, host of the show. Joining me tonight is Ben Baumgarten. He is the operator of End of the World News podcast, and John Brisson will be joining us a little later. He's running behind, and this is going to be an exciting topic to get into. Alexander Dugan and his philosophies. Right, a very interesting character, and I'm excited to dive into it. But folks, if you want to support the show, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/the biblical hitman. You could also support the channel over on YouTube and come check the channel out over on audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Spreaker. But with all that out the way, Ben, what's up, dude?
Hey, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good. I really was enjoying that talk before the show.
Oh, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Everybody will realize it's all fake and lame. And behind every revolution, there is a cult practitioner kind of guiding their flock in a certain direction. And we'll find that as we discuss Alexander Dugan today, who's quote unquote Putin's brain.
Isn't it? It's wild, man. So I know at least I am. I'm hyper focused on things that are going on over here in the United States. But these countries have pretty much everything that's going on here in the United States. It's happening everywhere. These people, there's these philosophers, these occultists, these futurists that are everywhere, dude. The New Age is everywhere. Okay, like it is what it is. What brought you into this guy's realm?
Well, as we've talked in the past, I've always made the statement that political Zionism needs to die in order for them to manufacture this prophecy. And it will be replaced with Orthodoxy Christianity. And then I remember Candace Owens about 3 or 4 weeks ago made that trip to Russia where she told all her fans, I'm going there because my husband likes to fish. And it turns out she was speaking at a big conference in Russia where Alexander Dugan was a participant in, and that kind of perked my ears. And I know that Andrew from 60 Agenda has been looking into that guy as well. So I did some research, and what you find out that although he pretends that he is an Orthodox Christian, and, as I've always said, is whatever institution claims to represent you, if you go down the rabbit hole deep enough, you will find out there are wolves in sheep's clothing who are guiding the flock to fit their agenda. And what you find out that Alexander Dugan is a full-blown New Age occultist. And a lot of the stuff that he talks about, you find both Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, what's his name, Alex Jones, Sneeko, who is a Muslim. They're all kind of walking step in step with Alexander Dugan. So while it's going on in Russia, the tentacles are over here in the United States.
It's wild, so people can partake, or they can participate, or maybe aid the New Age movement by not even being involved in it at all, right? Now, there are people that are involved in it and then they get out of it, but they carry still some of the beliefs, right? Like you still have some ideologies that you may agree with or whatever. And you go and you make your own platforms, you start talking about these things. Like these people are actually world servers. Right, like they're like the Jesse says it the best. One of the biblical hitmen, but he the familiars from the movie Blade, the people with the tattoos, right, in their lip that are everywhere in society, like they're everywhere. They're meant to like really kind of infiltrate, right? And that's what this movement's doing, but it's doing it in the facade of Christianity. There's a lot of people doing this right now, like especially Peter Thiel, right, with his kind of Christian movement. I don't even know what the heck to call that, but like I don't even know what to call that, dude. But it's getting weird. And I know back in the 80s, like the New Age movement pulled in the evangelicals, the charismatics, and started pulling these people that were at a high level, right, and had big congregations and all this kind of stuff. But it's spread into the church today, like in the Western world, right? Like, but for this guy here in the eastern side of the world in Russia doing this kind of stuff, that's wild. Now, like I looked him up. I looked into some of the things that he is into. One of the things he's into is esoteric Christianity. which is a weird thing. Do not run. Run
No,
from that,
what
bro.
he says is, he goes, I'm an Orthodox Christian. However, I think there's a lot of good stuff that the Gnostics have to say. And he's incorporated that into his world philosophy. And as a Christian, it's one thing to study it to understand what the enemy is doing, but to incorporate it into your geopolitical belief system is a whole nother thing, to the point where he uses the Atlantean mythos within it.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, and that's the thing. He's carrying over some theosophical philosophies into his own kind of philosophies, right? Like, and that's the thing, man. This everyone's talking about Atlantis. That's why I think something really big is going to happen that's going to contribute towards the narrative of Atlantis, or some sort of ancient civilization, wisdom, finding the origins of humanity, something along those lines. And humanity is going to just like fall under this harmonic perennial common ground, which I even think Dugan was a supporter of perennialism as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, it's part of that false light agenda, which is going to replace the bad guys with the good guys. But
I know, isn't it wild? Hey, real quick, man, I totally forgot. But where can I love the hook. We hooked them. Now, share with the audience where they can check out all your stuff and your programs.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to the group chat. You guys are awesome. You guys bring a lot of great information to the table, and it's just awesome you're here. But you can find me at End of the World's News, as it is in my bio right there on YouTube, or you can find me at End of the World News on Instagram. My X was recently hacked because I am an idiot. But so I'm restarting there, but that's like End of the World word new. It's worthless following me over on X, but either Instagram or YouTube, that's where you can find me, or on Spotify and iTunes, where I upload my weekly podcast.
Gotcha. Right on, man. Dude, what happened with X? What? I think
I'm lucky Tim's not in the audience
thing.
giving me shit.
Dude, I fell into a trap once on Facebook, right? Like, it was a car accident article or something, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like the city I live in, or whatever. And I was like, so I looked at it. Anyways, I had to change my password ASAP or something like that. But what happened with your?
So this is what happened to me. And mind you, I drive Uber. I got my mobile ministry. So I'm constantly driving. And if I get any break, it's the 2 to 5 minutes between rides. So I get this message from someone that followed me on X saying, hey, I'm sorry. Me and a couple others got together, reported you to X. We were wrong. But all you got to do is reach out to this person and we can settle this. And mind you, I'm like, oh crap, I don't have much time. I can't really think about it too much. And I'm kind of stressed out. And then they're like, all you have to do is go to Discord and tell them this. Well, I didn't know what Discord was. I still don't really know what Discord is. I'm not very good at technology. But then they're like, oh, you can go over to this other app and do it there. So I was just like, you know what? I don't want to lose my, X account. I wasn't really thinking about it. I go over there. Somehow they con me into changing my password or whatever. And then when they're like, hey, now to prove you are who you are, all you have to do is buy something. I was like, wait a minute. This is a scam. I was like, I'm not going to do it. But by then it was too late. They had gained control of my X account and they closed it all down, and they started reaching out to people who were following me, perpetuating the same scam on people. And a lot of people were affected by this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They got you, man.
They got me.
Man, they got you. Yeah, start all over, huh?
Yeah. And, but
not bad.
My X account's so heavily censored. It's just like, whatever. So this time, 10 people are going to see my views instead of like 25 or 30. Big deal.
Yeah. So this is the guy that we're talking about, right? This is the guy that we're getting into. What else have you kind of looked into with Mr. Dugan?
So to give you a kind of an example of who he is, let's look at his counterpart in America, who I would say is Steve Bannon. He is Roman Catholic Orthodox.
Oh, I wonder if he's CNP.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. He met with Steve Bannon in Rome in 2018. And if you know that when Trump was elected the first time, he was kind of positioned as the brain behind Trump. He made the world, made you believe that he was a populist, right? Because Steve Bannon was running the Tea Party movement and the populist movement. And then Trump kind of took that identity to get elected. And he was kind of calling the shots in at least the first year of his whole election. So I would say, and what was he pushing? This more traditional view, right? This year at the TPUSA event, he was even exposing the Greater Israel Project. And then what do the Epstein files tell us? Well, he was working with Epstein and the Zionists behind closed doors. And I think in that same vein, you have Dugin, who's promoting this orthodoxy. He's the brain behind Putin. They make a lot of big accusation against the Zionists and the Jewish elite, but behind closed doors, there was a video of Putin's rabbi, who's big within the Shabbat movement, saying, Putin, he runs everything by us. If he ever wants to do anything in Israel, he, works lock and step with us, and he has to get our approval. So once again, this is all a facade. They're all connected to this greater Zionist movement. And once again, I think it's to collapse political Zionism to usher in orthodoxy, or to collapse the entire system, because we know what the end game is, which is, this alien ascended masters, mystery Babylon religion that was popularized by Theosophy, which you get into all the time.
I know it's wild. Theosophy, what's really wild is I'm starting to see that there's some people that are going around on shows that used to be a part of, these societies, right? The White Lodge societies, I guess I would call it. People that were a part of the arcane schools of Lucis Trust, and what they have set as a plan. Like, there is a plan, right? Like there is a plan. They call it the plan. And it revolves all around the ascending masters. It revolves around the world teacher, right? Like, which is this Maitreya figure, according to like the Buddhist religion or whatever. But then this world teacher is going to kind of lead humanity out of the chaotic world, right? Mm. And I think that I don't know if there's going to be a war between the mystery schools, but it seems like they're kind of working as opposites right now, but for an overall goal, right? Like, Satan's working through both sides, right? The good and the bad, to officially get them to a certain destination. And then, what's wild too with the whole New Age is that there's another entity that's higher than the Maitreya, right? That is like off world, right? And it's called Sanat Kumara, right? This is Alice Bailey's work, but there's a connection with Venus, with Sanat Kumara. And so anyways, how you can lay out the New Age movement pretty nicely, not going to say perfectly, but nicely, with Revelation, the harlot, the beast system, all of this stuff that seems to be coming. And I've brought it up many times before on the show, but Matthew 24:24 talks about false Christs, talks about false prophets doing many signs and wonders that, if it were possible, it would deceive the very elect. And I think when it's talking about it could deceive the very elect, it's talking about those Christs and those false prophets in that event, right? And that's like, I'm almost like connecting ascending masters to that verse. Something inside of me is like connecting it to that, right? Like, how do you feel about, I mean, like, do you have a good idea what the ascending masters are, like their return and all this kind of stuff? It's like, what are your thoughts with that?
Well, they'll give them different names. They'll call them aliens. They'll call them ascended masters. They might come as ascended masters because people might be, they might receive the message a little bit better if it's love and light. But obviously that's a deception. And I can't prove this. I don't know where you can find this in the Bible, but I think they're going to deceive us somehow into fighting against God in the great battle of Armageddon. They might come back here and save us from the grays or something like that, get our trust. But I think they'll invoke this one world government after They collapse the entire system, blame the Abrahamic faith for all of it because of this holy war. And ultimately, they're going to deceive us into fighting against God, against Jesus with this one world government. I think they're going to go, hey, there's these other ascended masters out there, or these other aliens, or these other demons out there that are coming here to flatten the place. We need to form a one world government. By the way, we've been working with all your governments for the past 70 years to develop all this technology, which we'll use to fight against God. So I think that's how it kind of plays out. I don't know if there's anything biblical with that, but that's just what I feel.
Yeah. Now, Dugan, he gets into Atlantis, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
Obviously, he talks about it.
Oh, yeah. So this is really interesting as far as how end times goes. One of his belief systems, or his part of his agenda, is to unite the Muslim world with the Orthodox world. And he views that alliance as kind of a restrainer of the Antichrist, which he associates with the West. And let's just throw little Satan, Israel in with that. And what's interesting about that is you had Tucker Carlson go interview Putin about 2 or 3 years ago. This is still when he was wearing his Kabbalah bracelet, but he also interviewed Dugin. And then you see Tucker kind of going on an apologize tour throughout the Middle East.
Did he really?
Well, you saw how he goes to the Middle East all the time, trying to unite the Western Orthodox Christians, anything that's not Zionism, right, with the Muslim world. They're our brothers. We have more in common than we think, type of deal. He's over in Saudi Arabia. He's over in Qatar. He bought a house in Qatar. So you kind of see him playing out what Dugan's philosophy is. Yeah, and this is when he was still wearing the Kabbalah bracelet. I almost wonder if Dugan was like, hey, from one occultist to another, take that bracelet off, because no one's ever going to believe that you're a Christian. I don't believe he's a Christian, but yeah.
Wow. How long ago is this?
This is about 2 or 3 years ago, when Putin made that remark about how his father was in the CIA. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. As he always does.
Yeah.
But it's infiltrated the entire opposition. Like I said, and I truly believe this, we're living through a color revolution. And in all revolutions, there's a hidden hand behind it. And we're starting to see what that hidden hand is. And I'm not even saying that Dugan's responsible for all of it, because like I said, behind closed doors, the Zionists and the anti-Zionists, they work hand in hand. They're like a yin to the other's yang. Both are needed if your plan is to collapse the entire system, so you can then usher in this new mystery Babylon, ascended master, alien religion, like I think their plans are.
Yeah. And so, like, according to Theosophy, we're in the 5th root race, right? But the 6th root race pretty much, some of the characteristics of this evolution of mankind is telepathy, group consciousness, reduced nationalism, and greater spiritual awareness. And what if that's what these conspiracies are doing, right? Like these conspiracies that we're talking about, like, I mean, because they are real, right? But do you think the amount of information, the amount of knowing is aiding into the evolution of, humanity?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's definitely aiding with a means to get there, right? And we've talked about it before, but it's like we were like, oh, we're so smart. We're finding all this stuff out. We are noticing, we're truthers. But the truth of the matter is we're noticing what they will allow us to notice. Right. They are flooding the scene with conspiracies. A lot of them are real, which center around this occupation of America with the Zionist regime. And people, oh, I'm so smart. No, I mean, with QAnon, right? That literally was a psychological operation similar to Operation Trust, where they're exposing the elites, right? So they want us to know it. And I truly believe this, conspiracies without the truth. And who's the truth, the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus, our Messiah, are just another psyop. And ultimately, they'll be used to guide us down the path that they want, which I think is a major third war.
Right. Now, so circling back around with perennialism and that being a philosophy that Dugan, upholds too. This is interesting too, because this is what I've been thinking. I'm like, What is, if the whole world was to come together, they would have to come together under some sort of common ground in order to make an agreement on something or whatever, right? World order. We're talking about one world government. And it made me think, I think it's when Reagan, right? Reagan's in the United Nations and he's talking about, an extraterrestrial threat or something, unifying the world. And I think that that's a big part of the UFO agenda. I think it's a big part of the UFO narrative, is that is the perennial common ground. Because when you look at all the ancient cultures that these religions kind of stem from or whatever, it's got these gods, right? It's got the Genesis 6 event all over it, right? Like you've got these sons of God coming down, mating themselves, copulating with human women, and yada yada yada, giants and all this kind of stuff. What if, say, I don't want to say what if. It's almost like I'm coming to the conclusion of this is what Satan is doing, but he's using that as a common ground for humanity. But he's using it in a way to where he's establishing the common ground of the fallen angels, the star people, whatever, right? The ancient alien agenda, narrative and all this kind of stuff. Because I think it's going to be the adversary of this new religion, right? Like when the Antichrist comes here or whatever, I think he's going to have an adversary, right? Like I think something. You following me here? Like
Oh yeah.
where I'm tracking?
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You mean like there'll be an adversary that the quote unquote ascended masters will play off of in order to gain our trust?
Well, it's more like the ascending masters would be against another group of non-human intelligence or something, right? And this non-human intelligence, which David Icke kind of gets into, and he's another New Ager, that he talks about the reptilians being the archons. So you have like this dialectic of good ones and bad ones, which a lot of people are parroting right now. And it's like the ascending masters would be the ones that are the world's saviors, the good guys in this, in this whole theater.
I wonder if that's where like Project Blue Beam comes into play. Like they might stage some type of alien attack or invasion. They'll blame it on those gross looking reptiles. And then you'll have the Ascended Masters come, and they'll be the Nordic aliens that are all beautiful, and they'll come and save the day. And I can definitely see how that might materialize into this new alien cult that they're going to try to usher in. But I definitely see them using that type of good cop, bad cop to see this.
Yeah, and the Nordic thing is interesting because Jason Giorgiani's been talking a lot about the Nordics. There was, and Jesse Michaels just had another guy, a Hollywood film producer that just went on his show talking about the Nordics. And what I've come to understand about the Nordics and how they're discussing this part of the narrative is that the Nordics are a human race, but they're ultra terrestrial. They were here before our civilization, but the way they're being revealed now makes them look extraterrestrial, but they've been here the whole time. Now, when I listen to other people out there, oh man, who's the guy? I'm going mind blank. Elizondo, right? Leo Elizondo talks about humanity discovering the non-human intelligent life that's been here with us this whole entire time. That's a theosophical mindset, because that's about an Atlantean civilization surviving the cataclysm that's going to ultimately provide humanity with wisdom in order to remember who they once were, so that they don't make this circular mistake of a catastrophe. Like don't destroy humanity. That's why this whole nuclear stuff is all around the UFO stuff, man, because they're trying to come back and be like, hey, don't destroy yourselves like you did in the past. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, they've used this for a long time. I mean, when my spidey senses went up about Admiral Byrd, and I know like that's one of the first conspiracies that a lot of people get into. Oh, Admiral Byrd was up in Antarctica and he was, sucked into the inner earth. And who did he meet? he met a Nordic alien. And they talked about how they've had to save humanity multiple times from themselves. Also in the alien psyop, you have those guys that, were in the military that quote unquote worked at nuclear bases where they came down and they stopped us from destroying ourselves. I think they might play that too. And they might actually use the Atlantean mythos about the war that happened before the flood, which led to the destruction between the Atlanteans and the Lemurians, which actually overlaps with his geopolitical philosophy. It's an Atlantean philosophy, how he views geopolitics today.
And how does he, in what matter? Like, how does he break that down?
Can I read this real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Just because I don't want to mess up the words, and someone touched upon it earlier in the chat.
Shout out to the chat.
Yeah.
Chat's on steroids, man.
Yeah. So this is his geopolitical philosophy. The Atlantean versus Eurasian metaphysics. Dugan's geopolitical framework is heavily rooted in a mythological esoteric worldview. He divides global civilizations into two fundamentally opposed forces. The Atlantean, and I think he pronounces it Thalassocracy. I can't pronounce that. A maritime seafaring power, historically and currently associated with the United States, the UK, NATO, and let's just throw Israel in with that. In Dugan's philosophy, Atlantis represents secularism, capitalism, scientific rationalism, individualism, real material, which is exactly how Atlantis was described in their Atlantean mythos, right? Technology, all about the self. And then he describes Eurasian as telecracy, which would be Russia and the alliances that he was forming, continental land power with Russia at the center, allied with nations that reject Western hegemony. These societies are characterized by traditional values, spiritualism, authoritarianism, and holistic governantism, which is exactly how, I shouldn't say exactly, but there's similarities between that and how Lemuria is described. And if anybody knows anything about the Atlantean Lemurian War, this comes from Theosophy, and it talks about how these countries or these civilizations came together, battled, and destroyed everything. And I think we're going to see that play out today.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because what you detailed there as far as kind of how he views, what was it, the United States, right? The European Union there, the NATO, all that kind of movement. He's kind of labeling that as Atlantis, right?
Yeah,
like the forerunner of Atlantis, right? So he's breaking it down into capitalism, right? And he's breaking it down into like I would call it the Black Lodge's philosophies of how to move forward with like evolving mankind. What I mean by that is like, because according to Casey's work, right? Because there's a bunch of people that made different, writings on Atlantis, but Casey talks about there being two groups, right? So whenever anyone talks about Atlantis, I'm always kind of looking at the story through the lens of Edgar Casey. And he breaks down these two groups, being one group, the Sons of the Law of One, and the other group being the Sons of Belial. And what you just described there with materialism, capitalism, independence or whatever, like that's all favoring towards the Sons of Belial group, which is interesting because I think that Peter Thiel falls under that group as well. And again, like the technology is the common ground for both groups, right? It's just how are we using the tech? And the law of one group would use it more for spiritual ascension, growth, things like that, rather than like, this security state dominance kind of Skynet type vibe,
Well, you definitely see that playing out today. Just look at the alliance between the Roman Church and Anthropic. The Pope comes out warning everybody about AI. He even used the words Tower of Babel. We all associate negative things with that. But he goes, but I'm going to form an alliance with Anthropic, the good AI, and we're going to build a city fitting of God. So there you have those two polarizing groups. They might seem that they're at odds with each other, but ultimately the end game is the same. They just slap a different shade of lipstick on it and expect you to think it's not the same pig.
It's funny because like Satan gives you the red pill or the blue pill, and it's
Yeah.
like both are both are both. Like if you're going to consume it, you're going to consume the plan of Satan.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter. Which it's very it's tactical, right? Like it's strategic to do it how he's doing it. And it's almost like mankind is always making the decision, right? Like I don't like giving Satan that much authority. It's more like he's kind of influencing mankind, and then humanity is just kind of playing it out for him, right? It's wild.
Well, absolutely. I think like people like the pyramid of power. Like who's on top? Is it Shabbat? Is it the Jesuits? Is it, the Masons, the Rosicrucians? But guess what? Above that are powers and principalities. Throw Satan in there. But what's above that? Our sinful nature. Our human sinful nature, because without willful participants, Satan couldn't carry out his agenda. So he tricks us. He deceives us. He tries to get us to go the way of the world, all to carry out what he wants us to do. And I think it's important to remember for Christians trying to discern what's happening, anyone preaching a good versus bad paradigm when it comes to geopolitics, it's not biblical. Like I believe the Bible when it says Satan is the prince of this world. I also believe the Bible when it says that powers and principalities rule over all these nations. So I think that's the important part of this, because a lot of people talk about, oh, it's about the message. It's about the message. No. It's just as important as about the messenger. As we see with Alexander Dugan, he speaks a good game. It tickles our ear. Yeah. But then you find out he's this full-blown occultist who's definitely read in on the script, and you can see how he's actually playing his role to further the agenda. And it's all rooted in occult mystery.
Yeah. Cindy has a question here. She says, okay, Stephen and Ben, do you think they're on the same team or they're contenders for the same end, but enemies?
That's interesting. So I always like to compare it to Game of Thrones, right? And there you have a realm with multiple bloodlines, some who are part dragon, seraphim, literally translates over to fiery dragon. They intermarry with each other. They sometimes go with battle with each other for more control over the realm. But ultimately, they serve the greater agenda, right? So they all serve Satan, and they might squabble here and there. They might, fight with each other for a bigger piece of the pie. But I think the end goal is a collapse of everything. And in this war, if you're going to blame, the Zionists, Israel is this evil group, you need to have an opposition to that. And I just think they represent the opposition. And since they're all occultists, I would say they know that this is one big magic trick to guide their herd that they're responsible for. Because remember, that's how the earth is kind of portioned off, a principality over each one of these nations. All right, John's here.
Oh, John.
So long story short, they might battle with each other a little bit for a bigger piece of the pie, but ultimately they're all serving the same agenda.
Yeah. What's up, John? Welcome to the party, man.
Apologize for the delay. Weather in the South. What can I say?
It's all good.
But I am here. I'm glad to be here. Good to see you, Ben. Good to see you, Stephen. I was listening before I came on. And I have a lot to say about Dugan.
Let's hear it,
man. Yeah, let's hear it, man. Who is this guy?
Real quick. I would love to, after we talk about this for a while, read that one thing that I sent you about the Gnostics, because I would love John's thoughts on this, knowing that he's kind of an expert in that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, cool. John, welcome to the party, man. Dugan, man, where do we start with this guy? We've covered a little bit so far, but
I've been tracking Alexander Dugan for say 7-8 years now. And S90's done a lot of research on Alexander Dugan. We've done numerous streams on Alexander Dugan. And kind of their version of Hyperborea Atlantis is also known as the Oak and Spoke Kingdom. That's their version of it. Or at least Russia's kind of mysticism version of a utopian type society, which in reality, if you actually like do research, it's literally just Korea. Like literally, it's literally just Korea. But anyway, that's it is. I mean, that's what they were writing about, but whatever. But anyway,
I thought you said utopia, man.
Well, yeah, but I meant like what the location and what they write about and everything and the architecture and stuff like that. It's literally Korea. Okay, like obviously Korea's no utopia, but it's what they're writing.
I was thinking of a sandals resort, man. Like something.
But anyway, so Dugan considers himself to be Russian Orthodox. He considers himself to be one of the old ones, okay? The old ones in the Russian Orthodox Church. Orthodox believers want to make you believe that they're all one unified sect, which they're not. There's denominations and splits within Orthodoxy. You have Greek Orthodoxy, you have Russian Orthodoxy, you have the old ones within Russian Orthodoxy, you have Rokor, etc. So they want to act like they're one unified front, and they want to dunk on Protestants all day long, which I consider Baptists not to be Protestants. I consider them to be separate. But for the sake of discussion, I'll say that they are Protestants. They want to dunk on us all day long. Say, you're divided, and we are, but to a degree. But so are they. So are they. And so, you have, Armenian Orthodoxes, you have Coptic Christians, there's so many different sects that broke off from Catholicism, including Protestantism, which, Protestantism didn't completely finish the job. They went all the way back to Augustine and stopped and said, good enough. Right. And so, but anyway, Dugan likes to call himself an old one. It's a branch of the Orthodox Church. But in reality, Alexander Dugan, as been stated correctly, is an occultist. He's straight up occultist. He's a chaos magician. He used to write poems to Aleister Crowley, as both me and S90 have shown. You could probably Google it and find it, Stephen. The rituals that Alexander Dugan was a part of, reading Crowley, reading pagan literature, and having like half-naked people spinning around on like self-made crucifixes and stuff like that. And Dugan reminds me of like a Satanist version of Paul, right? So he's not appealing to whomever, a Greek or a Jew, to give them the gospel in the hopes that they get saved, right? Instead, he's appealing to whoever. Dugan throughout his life has adopted communist beliefs, occultic beliefs, Russian Orthodox beliefs, National Socialist beliefs, Theosophist beliefs, Gnostic beliefs. It's whatever. It's whoever audience he is speaking to. He will adopt whatever belief necessary to get his twisted views across. And that is, he's like a satanic inverse Paul. All right. And he's not doing it for God and Jesus, obviously. And Paul wasn't being dishonest. It was just whomever he was going to be who he's going to represent himself to be. Right. Because, Paul was both, he was a Roman citizen, but he was also Jewish by ethnicity. Right. And so, but Dugan does it by deception. And he wants to ultimately push, Russian supremacy. But it's weird, not white Russian supremacy, because you'll have a lot of the white nationalist groups glom on to Dugan and glom on to Vladimir Putin as the savior of the white race. When in reality, we have numerous clips of Dugan, just hating on white Christian Americans, especially Protestants, especially teenage boys, where he says that the Epstein class, the reason why we have it, quote unquote, is because, and I played this quote, S90's found it, because of white Christians or white teenage boys in their parents' basements playing video games in America in their teenage years. He hates America. He hates America. He hates white people. Dugan wants a Russia for Asiatic Russians instead of the Tsarist Christian white Russians. And Dugan, again, will go to anybody and put forth whatever necessary for him to push Gnosticism and, his fourth political theory and the false Great Awakening. He even wrote a book called The Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. I've read it on my channel, and so parts of it. So, it's whatever he needs to push, he will push. And Dugan has actually said and actually called out the European Union and kind of defended Jewish Talmudic and the use of the Kabbalah in society and societal norms, and saying, and I've covered his tweets, saying it is better than liberal European Union atheist agnostic belief systems. Right? He's literally defending the Talmud and defending the Kabbalah. That's Dugan. That's Dugan for you. And Dugan has been platformed by Alex Jones. Dugan has been platformed by Jay Dyer. Dugan has been platformed, as Ben mentioned, and or maybe you, Stephen, by Sneeko. Dugan gets around. Tucker Carlson, for example, right? Candace Owens going to that conference among many other people, and so we could talk about Sargrad TV and Konstantin Malafiev and Alex Jones going on Sargrad and David Icke going on, with Sargrad and Bannon, Konstantin Malafiev being the head of Sargrad TV, which was set up by Sean Hannity's former producer. I'll have to get his name, who's a member of the CMP, who went over to Russia and with the Russian oligarch Konstantin Malafiev, and Dugan was literally second in command of Sargrad TV. Push, conspiracy and Russian supremacy narratives, and both in one mouth anti-Zionism, but in another mouth pro-Chabad, pro-Zionism at the same time. Yeah. So make it make sense. Just like the CMP, I used to always say, one last thing, Ben, I'll let you get in. I definitely want to hear what you would say. You go to CMP, you'll have the Regneries, which are, white nationalists, National Policy Institute, ardent anti-Zionists, right? And Richard Spencer, right? Richard Spencer's wife used to translate Dugan's works to English, okay? But anyway, I digress. You'll have them sitting at the same table as the Mercer family, ardent Zionists, right? Cambridge Analytica, right? Make it make sense.
It doesn't. Unless you understand that this good versus bad paradigm is BS. And I just want to say this, you can kind of compare him to is like the modern day Rasputin.
Yeah. That's what I call him.
And you can kind of apply this to any world leader. They're the ones that are kind of calling the shots, but behind closed doors, they have a group of occultists, high priests that are kind of tickling their ear saying, you should do this. And maybe throw John D into that type of example right there. But I think that's who he is.
That's wild.
I would say a modern, revision of kind of like the embodiment of chaos and magic. Sure. Aleister Crowley, John D, any of them. Yeah, I would agree, Ben, that he's just Satan's new representation of them.
Yeah.
And he's that involved with the Orthodox Church?
Oh, yeah.
Russia? Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
well,
wild.
I would say the state Orthodox Church.
Correct, yes.
Right. So
well, it makes sense that he's choosing that. I don't know exactly why he's choosing it. Maybe there's a movement behind it, but you sent me that article, Ben, or whatever it was, right, from Dugin, 1995, talking about pretty much his Gnostic beliefs and the path in life that he believes to choose in.
Which he was okay with Zhang talking about that in an interview with Sneeko, not to cut you off, Stephen.
Oh, no, really?
He was perfect. Yes, he was perfectly fine with Professor Zhang saying, Sneeko taught, Sneeko's a Muslim, Zhang's a Gnostic, and Dugan's whatever Satan wants him to be. All right. And so, yeah, like he's perfectly fine with both Islam and Gnosticism.
Not just perfectly fine. It's his goal to unite the Orthodox world with the Muslim world in opposition of what? Israel.
Agreed, yes.
Interesting how that once again lines up with this idea that they're trying to manufacture this prophecy where the nations turn on Israel. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Now, I would argue my only difference between me and you on that is
Yeah.
I don't think it's manufactured. I do think it actually
Yeah.
is prophecy. I think it will come to pass.
I believe that too. I just meant that there's definitely some powers and principalities at play that are given the okay by God,
Sure.
which makes it part of God's divine plan, but they're trying to make it happen. I guess I'm trying to.
And I think that they will make it happen.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it right now. And I'd love to get you guys' opinion on it. But especially with, Aaron Fouchman, you had Aaron on, Stephen, for Underground Publishing. He's convinced me that if there are two Gog-Magog wars, that Gog or Goguryeo is Korea. Now, I've done a lot of research into Goguryeo, the ancient kingdom of Korea. And you had Trump going over there with the tomb of the heavenly horse and the white horse and everything like that. And I don't disagree with Aaron that Gog is North Korea. We'll see. Pyongyang before the Korean War was known as Little Jerusalem because of how many converts were people are converting to Christianity there in North Korea, and that stopped, right? And so you still have somewhat a strong Christian presence in South Korea, mainly Presbyterian, but still nonetheless. But anyway, I believe because, as Ben is talking about, Dugan is saying we have to stop Russia. We have to stop Bibi Netanyahu. We have to reclaim Constantinople. Okay, we have to take it back from Turkey. But on our way, we're going to stop in Israel and make sure we stop everything that's going on there. All right, Dugan is saying these things openly. Openly, you can read it on Exit. That's what that's what his ultimate goal is to save the world from Israel, save the world from Zionism, and at the same time reclaim Constantinople for the Orthodox Church to bring in and to usher in the complete millennium.
Oh, I agree.
Wow. Yeah, it's wild, man. What was that paper called, Ben?
Oh, it's called The Gnostic. If you just type in The Gnostic and Alexander Dugan from 1995, it will pop up. And when you read this paper, there'll be certain keywords that will trigger, ideas like, oh my gosh, this is Western esotericism. This is Theosophy 101, ideas that were popularized by people like Alice Bailey when it talks about the left hand and the right hand path. And there you go. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, so it pretty much talks about a left-hand path, so you can see it right here, and a right-hand path.
Which is straight up theosophical. That's straight up from Theosophy. Straight up.
Could you tell us, because I know you've had history with that kind of stuff from the past and everything. Like, what does that mean?
Well, that's the the teaching of, it could boil down to you have left-hand magic and the left-hand path and the right-hand path, right? So it's the same with white magic and Wiccan and black dark occult magic, right? So it's kind of framed as how are you going to use which hand and for what, right? And so of course, with the Bible we know that all witchcraft is satanic. It is rebellion against God. It's you trying to go your own way and using your own will to try to attempt to supersede God's will. It's extremely arrogant. So there is no left-hand path or right-hand path when it comes to magic and occultism. There is no white magic or black magic when it comes to occultism. It's all straight up evil. It's all straight up sin. And so that's how that it's framed in Theosophy is, how are you going to use it? What is it going to be used for? And, even with, left-hand path or right-hand path, white magic or black magic, some will say black magic, chaos, again, to the occultist is duality, right? Chaos can bring in order. Too much order sometimes can cause chaos, right? So it's the same way that they look at magic. It just depends on how you're going to wield it to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. So as I was doing a little bit of research, and I'm not, an expert on Theosophy, but they associated the left-hand path with dark magic or black magic. So that's interesting that let's take it full circle, that all these truth tellers over here on the West are aligning with what Theosophists would tell you are dark magic practitioners.
Which would be the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
Mostly the human sacrifice rituals and
not only
stuff
that
we see.
But in that paper, Dugan makes the case that the only path forward is the left-hand path. So he's saying that this dark magic, this total destruction of this prison planet, and they'll associate the governmental structure as this prison planet. I forget the words that he used in that article. They were very interesting.
Which is Gnostic.
Which is all Gnostic. Yeah.
And Scientology uses the same term for prison. Alex Jones used prison planet, right?
Yeah.
So L. Ron Hubbard borrowed it from Gnosticism, as Ben was talking about, from Gnosticism, and Theosophy borrowed it from Gnosticism. All right. And so, yeah, I mean, you have the left hand and the right hand, black and white magic, chaos and order magic, and the Black Lodge and the Great White Lodge, right? And so, but again, even your Theosophists will rail against the Black Lodge and will rail against the left-hand path. But even in their writings, they'll say it's necessary too, sometimes, to steer humanity ahead. Very similar for Alice Bailey seems to be schizophrenic when it comes to Zionism and anti-Zionism, and very schizophrenic when it comes to Nazi Germany. She holds both many positions within her writing. One moment she'll be coming against Hitler, the next minute she'll be coming against the Jews.
Yeah, it is interesting. In that paper that he writes, he literally calls out all of these famous world leaders, from Hitler to Che Guevara to, you name it, Mussolini, the fascist guy, and he'll tell you that all these people, their foundation is all occultism. I mean, that's literally what he says in the paper. So what I've always been trying to tell people, all earthly agendas are corrupted by either occultists, demons, or Satan himself. So, let's pick Jesus the entire way,
Amen, brother. Amen, man. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to think that, but when you realize the entire world is going through a color revolution and doesn't even realize it, you realize the only answer is Jesus,
but it's
because there's no stopping it.
It's ultimately what they want, brother. The grand illusion that God pours out in the world so the end times can occur, and this massive, like you said, color revolution. The great apostasy. Even as far as Christians are concerned, some people have termed maybe the Grand Rebellion. It all boils down to that, and we're witnessing it right now. Literally witnessing it right now in the world. You even have so-called Christians choosing the world. They're not choosing Jesus. They're not choosing God. They're not choosing Jesus. Is the one who treads the winepress alone, like it says in Revelation. Jesus is the one who brings his kingdom. Okay. The saints are almost overcome if it's not for Jesus coming to save us. Right now, the church doesn't completely, Satan does not prevail against the church, but the saints get a pretty big whooping. All right. So again, like, where's your eschatology? Where's your heart at? And a lot of people out there are more pragmatic instead of idealistic Christians, and they're thinking like Dugan. They're thinking like the world, right? And they're saying, oh, we just have to vote, or we just have to elect the right person and put him in the office, or we just have to yoke with Catholics and pro-life movements, like we have to get all this stuff done for God and for Jesus, right? But that's not what God asks of us. That's not what Jesus asks of us. That's what the Holy Spirit drives us to do. We're called to preach the gospel to all nations. We're called to show the love of Jesus Christ. We're called to baptize those who believe in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's what we're called to do. If there's any mass revival, even though the end times don't point to that, but if there is, that's what would drive it. Not voting, not politics, not anything of this world. And I understand I'm a pragmatist in my own personal life, okay? But I have to fight against that natural inclination of pragmatism, because as Christians, we're supposed to be idealists. And who we point to as the perfect is Jesus Christ and his kingdom, okay? And we don't make it by our hands. He does. God and him are the ones who do this. So the world, Dugan is, like, as Ben's saying, Dugan is pushing, among other people, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all went to Russia, all went to Dugan conferences, by the way. Alex Jones is the same, right? They're all pushing for you to yoke up and to join with the world to fight the Black Lodge, to fight the current world order, ushering in the Antichrist and the beast system along with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to your point, Jesus is clear what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to join this political movement or, well, whatever it is, it's the Great Commission. Go out and baptize the nations and teach them everything that he taught us in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So we got to understand why we're here, right? And we look at these earthly battles and we get, lured into them, but we forget what the greater battle is, which is over our salvation. And the only weapon for that is the gospel, right? So if you really want to fight for God, be a Christian warrior, then arm yourself up with the good news. And that's how we do it.
Right. I made a simple Google search of Dugan and Barbara Marx Hubbard, and they share a lot of the same philosophies. Is there a connection between them, John? Barbara and
S90 might be able to speak more to that. He's in the chat. Not directly, but just by the people that they interact with. I don't have them, at least I know of, together at all. But obviously the people that they've all interacted with and the people that they've all been involved with in the circles and stuff like that, very much so. Excuse me, right? So unless S90 has anything to add into the chat, I can't say any direct, like, do I know if they were in the room together? Not to my knowledge. But again, like Alex Jones would be, Thrive with Foster Gamble, would be a direct connection between the two, right? So, I mean, like, I can't put them in a room together, or I don't think they've ever been in a conference together that I know of. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't share the same rotten satanic philosophy. If they got together, they might disagree on the, some of the nuances, but they would agree in the overall message. And it's like with Bannon and Dugan had a falling out, so they say, right? But they're both cut from the same cloth, and so none of them are people that, SI says none of them directly together. We got nothing together. Like, I've looked, like, it's not for lack of trying. But again, like, they share the same belief systems. So, there was another, so you had three. You had Brazil, which was Carvalho. You had Dugan, which was Russia, and Bannon, which is America. Carvalho claimed to be Catholic and actually may have been in his later life. Okay. Bannon claims to be Catholic. I still think he's a Theosophist, if you want my honest, belief. And Dugan's still a Gnostic. He claims to be Russian Orthodox, old one. Okay. So, like, Carvalho is the only one that I'm like, well, he was wrong about being Catholic, obviously, but he kind of got into some, like, if you read his final debates with Dugan, he was bitter towards Dugan's, like, destructive chaos magic occultism. All right. So for what it's worth, and Bannon still practices that chaos magic occultism. All right. So let's be real here. So I'm not defending Carvalho. I don't think he was our guy, but, like, out of the three, he may have been maybe the most, I hate to say this, the most genuine. But I mean, that's still hard to cut. It's hard for me to say that,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Oh, I think Bannon is an occultist for sure. I remember reading an article, and I guess he used to be an alcoholic. And anybody who's ever been delivered from substances, when they ask you, how did you get delivered? You thank Jesus, you thank the Holy Spirit. But there was an entire article about him thanking the Jesuits. Like, he literally thanked a mystical cult, sun cult, for the reason why he got sober. So when I read that, I was like, dude, there's no way that guy's truly a
Did he
Christian.
really?
Yeah, he thanked the Jesuits to why he got sober.
That's kind of interesting.
That seems about right. That seems about right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, right? Because when I was looking into him and Barbara, I was like, what did they link up on, right? And I don't think maybe they, again, I haven't done that much research on the guy, but he was very he incorporated the elements of the noosphere. Barbara talked about the noosphere. Taylor D. Chardin talked about the noosphere. Vladimir Verdansk talked about the noosphere, and Verdansk was from Russia, right? Chardin was a Jesuit, but the noosphere is like this concept of a global consciousness or something, right? And I don't, that's what I'm trying to think. If that's part of the plan, right? Which it would be, right? That would be the sixth root race, unity in some sort of way. But, or one of the things of the six root races, but unity and global consciousness, and the fact that there's a layer of this that goes around the globe, right? I mean, what are your guys' thoughts with this? Have you guys heard of it?
I mean, I would assume that again, if you had Dugan and Barbara Hubbard in a room together, they would agree. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he's pushing that type of rhetoric. I mean, I'm going to try to bring up, you can't even get the book anymore, his book on the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset, Stephen. You can't even, I don't think you can even buy it anymore.
Really?
But I'm going to read some parts of it. Ben, and it's weird because you think his belief system would have changed since the 90s, right? But when I read it to you, Ben, it's going to sound like what you just brought up. It hasn't changed. He still praises Mao Zedong. All right. Like, I mean,
this is it right here, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You shouldn't be able to buy it.
I mean, I didn't get an Amazon link, so
yeah.
There it is. But
click on it and see. Click on it and see if you can still, because it was. Yeah, see, you can't. It used to be on Kindle. I had the Kindle, and they took it off my Kindle. I kid you not, dude.
Really?
Well, I think that's telling though, right there. I mean, Stephen, you've gone into detail about the Great Awakening map, and words matter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll read parts of it because it's still up on my X, and let me bring it up. But he's pushing that narrative. And Dugan's anti-West. He's technically anti-Christian. He's anti-America. All right. And at least Bannon is not anti-America. I'll give him that. And Carvalho was definitely not anti-America or anti-West. Both debates, he went on Dugan hard. Because again, Dugan's for Asiatic Russia, and so I mean, like, I'm not saying none of these people are our guys, and I don't think any of them were Christian. All right, obviously. But again, they at least had debates within themselves, at least on appearances, And I remember when Bannon, one last thing, and I'll definitely, you guys go ahead and Ben and everything. I don't mean to take up time, but I just know so much about this, it's all stuck in my head. But Bannon met with Miles Guo on a yacht in front of New York City, just to give you Bannon of who he is. All right. And so Miles Guo cuts his wrist to do a blood oath about rescuing China from communism. Okay. In front of the Statue of Liberty with Bannon on a yacht. All right. Miles Guo, I don't know, like what do you call, like a double, triple, quadruple agent between America and China? I don't know, the billionaire, or the Chinese billionaire, right? He cuts his hand, and then Bannon's kind of shocked, but at the same time he's going with it too. He cuts his hand, and they do a blood oath together that they're going to save China from communism. All right, like this is who they are. This is who they are.
Can I ask you a question, John?
Yes, Ben, go ahead.
Do you think that Dugan is even pro-Russia? It seems like all these people are just anti-human, because I can totally see, at least through his philosophy and how he views the Eurasia state or country or whatever he refers to it as as a means to collapse everything, right? So this conflict that's going to arise between the NATO Atlantean allies and this Russian
that's exactly how he frames it.
power empire is going to collapse everything. So I think we'll see Russia go away. I think you'll see Russians die. I think you'll see the West and NATO people die, all so they can usher in this new one world mystery Babylon alien cult religion.
What if disclosure is the thing that breaks down society? It always has been. It's just, you know, we're at the point with technology and the for everyone to be able to get information like that. So you saw in the movie Disclosure Day. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
I went off based off of yours and Rush's shout out to Rush, his interview about it, and realized I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah. It was.
But you did for us, okay? But
it was a terrible film.
I don't think it shaked any Christian's faith, if you ask me.
No. It was a horrible film. I fell asleep in it for like a whole hour of it. It wasn't even good. To your point, I wasn't even entertained.
No. People like David Grush and those guys, like they get the red carpet, man, for this movie, bro, because the whole movie is based off of the whistleblower, you know, community and council, all this kind of stuff. But that's what I'm saying, Ben, is like this whole Atlantis narrative has something to do with the awakening. It has something to do with getting humanity to remember something, right? And like that's what I see with disclosure, right? Like if they're talking about multiple different kinds of aliens, right? So we're splitting apart the pleroma here. You know what I'm saying? Like they're breaking apart to where there's a dialectic happening with the alien narrative. You know, grays are either these automatons or these Autobots that work for the reptilians. If you listen to David Icke, or if you listen to Jason Giorgiani about the Nordics, you know, being a surviving Atlantean race, they would be like ultra terrestrial. And so therefore you already have the framework of like these entities that may be in the heavens versus, you know, another species of aliens that have always been here on Earth with us and are us and all this kind of crap. You know, I can see the Ascending Masters thing breaking through that.
Oh, absolutely.
You kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's important to listen to what the New Age has to say about their spreadsheet of who's who, right? Because it's pretty sophisticated. I'm only talking about
to a degree, but it still could be like it still could be wrong though. We always have to remember that.
I agree.
Especially if it ultimately doesn't match up with the Bible, which I know all three of us agree with.
Right.
Yes.
But
these are all just ideas that we're trying to put together.
Correct. Yes. So
it's shocking when I see Fox News talking about Nordics and Mantis beings.
I mean, I'm like, what is going on
here?
Should we expect any less?
I'll tell you one thing though. I think we're going to see something substantial in the next 3 to 5 years. Like at this point, there's so much tooth out of the toothpaste bottle, you can't put it back in. And if they don't pull the trigger, right, as far as some type of being coming down here, now what that is definitely are going to be nefarious. People will lose faith in the entire psyop. So I definitely think it's coming.
Yeah, John, you sent me this, bro.
Yeah, so that's something I found. I'm going to start reading from the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. But here we have at Arctos, which is Dugan. So we have Arcofuturism, right? So we have a combination of like the future and like Greco-Roman aesthetics, right? So we have the guy, the chop, say we must build glorious things again, right? Right. And then Elon Musk affirms this. And then the Q account, that's not really a Q account, but so nonetheless, as above, so below. That sums up the false Great Awakening right there, folks. Good night.
I know. Like they want to bring heaven to earth or establish a kingdom here that maybe, you know,
that the Pope is going to
it as heaven.
That the Pope will rule over with Anthropic. That's their goal.
Yeah. AKA Third Rome, as S90 says in the chat.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, and it's like S90 says too. It's like, you know, it's just all take whatever option you want. You'll still get to a futurist society, you know, coming down the road with all this. That's so funny. I can't. So you snapshotted that.
When did they put this up?
If you scroll down, you'd be able to see it. 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. So what were you saying about his book? You said you were going to read something out of his book?
Yeah, I'm trying to find some good quotes on it.
Isn't this an interesting character? How he's kind of like playing both sides. I mean, I get what you're saying, John, where there's really no such thing as a black lodge and a white lodge. It's all just sin and it's evil, and you're right. But it's kind of like he's taking multiple different pieces of both of those groups, if you were to make those groups possible.
But that's what Satan's always done, is tried to make some sort of syncretic blend. You know, I mean, that's what any beliefs. I mean, that's what all the world's religions are, is bits and pieces and distortions of the Bible in a lot of ways throughout ancient history. You know, and so I mean, that's what they base a lot of it off of. So I mean, it's the same. Again, when I was a New Ager, not one person's New Age beliefs are unified, because all is open except for Bible-believing Christianity. So it's literally just throwing things in a blender for each individual person until you get what you want.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting about this is, well, he is an occultist. So whether we believe it or not, like as Christians, we'll say, yeah, black magic, white magic, both bad, both sins. But these people think there is a difference between black and white magic. And the fact that he says the only way forward is black magic is a little scary to me.
Yeah, that's why when you were telling me his kind of, you know, what he was talking about with Atlantis in our modern day today, like he was talking about it in a way that Casey would talk about the sons of Belial, which is interesting because he's kind of like a New Ager too. So I'm like, hold on. Like but that's where we're talking about, where I guess they can just pick and choose whatever they want. I'm too dogmatic that that you have to pick a side. What's going on here? You know, I'm trying to label these people like on a chessboard or something.
But it's interesting. Don't us Christians do that too? Don't we pick and choose what we like to formulate our opinion on how we worship Jesus?
If we're going to be hypocritical, yes. Yes. If we're going to override the Holy Spirit, yes.
As Heiser says, let the text speak for themselves.
Yes. So here we have right here from Dugan, the Great Awakening is a flash of consciousness at the threshold of the singularity.
And this is an Orthodox person.
I bet Elon Musk would agree with him there, right?
Wow.
This is from his book, The Great Awakening versus the Great Reset. That is a direct quote. So we also have here, as we've seen in the Capitol footage, the Trumpist activists and QAnon participants of January 6th look like characters from comic books or Marvel superheroes. Conspiracy is an infantile disease of anti-globalization, but on the other hand, it is the beginning of a fundamental historical process. This is how the pole of opposition to the very course of history is in its liberal sense is emerging, which would make sense because Alice Bailey is the OG conspiracist, right? And so now it looks like the baby's going to come to term, as she said, that would bring in the Great White Lodge and the Ascended Masters through world servers, enlightening and illuminating everybody to the Great Black Lodge, initiating them into the quote-unquote mysteries, would bring forth the utopia, right?
Yes.
So
Can I ask you a question?
go ahead.
Can I ask you a question real quick before we go on? So me and Stephen were kind of talking about this before, but is this what he's talking about, how they're using conspiracies now to further their agenda?
Yes, and he's saying it's a good thing. And you guys remember the meme of like the lasers coming out of people's eyes and stuff like that and everything? That's a Russian superhero trope. Not laser beams, but I'm talking about, you'll see like the lights flashing out of people's eyes, right? And stuff like that, right? That's a Russian superhero trope. So it's not wrong for Dugan to say that everybody at January 6th that was trying to keep Trump in power to take their country back through the QAnon operation and the Great Awakening, they're modern day superheroes.
Cue the QAnon shaman.
Yeah. Would be Dugan's example of a chaos agent, modern day superhero. Exactly, Ben. Couldn't said it better myself.
Yeah, with a ridiculous outfit and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So here also writes, the Great Awakening is something more organic, more spontaneous, and at the same time tectonic. This is how humanity is suddenly being illuminated by the consciousness of the nearness of the imminent end. Sounds exactly like Barbara Hubbard. Sounds exactly like Blavatsky. Sounds exactly like Alice Bailey, right? I mean, there's no difference. And this is why the Great Awakening is serious. This is why it's coming from within the United States, a civilization where the twilight of liberalism is its thickest, is a cry from the center of hell itself, from that zone where the black future has partly arrived. This means that big data, that is the entire body of information about virtually the entire population of the earth, has an owner and master. Technologies, science centers, global education, cultural media, medicine, and social services are completely in their hands. Of course, these contradictions in the ranks of the opposition are further exacerbated by the ruling elites who are used to divide in order to dominate. Muslims are pitted against Christians, leftists against rightists, Europeans against Russians or the Chinese. But the Great Awakening is happening, not because of it, but in spite of all of this. Humanity itself, man is idios. So again, man is God, right? It's what he's trying to allude to. So again, with all of this, we know that the truth divides, right? I'm not saying that we don't unite together as born-again Christians and born-again believers, but with the world, it can cause division. The truth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ can cause division. The New Agers will try to bring uniting with everyone and everything until they can't, and then they're going to eliminate you.
So, you know, it's interesting, real quick, that you said that. Yeah. I saw Candace Owens put out a tweet saying it's time to unite the Roman Orthodox with the Eastern Orthodox, which I'm not actually opposed to, because then both sides would have to admit they're not the one true church. So, hey, have at it.
Wow. Are you serious? Dude, because I've been calling that. It's so fun. I mean, I'm nobody.
This was right after
I'm just saying,
right after you went to Russia.
Well, dude, like I would say like 6 months ago, I was saying that Tucker and Candace are going to be pushing an ecumenical move of all of the church, like, you know, the Protestants, Orthodox, Catholics, like everything's gonna go back to the Roman Catholic Church. I'm seeing so many influencers, and it's not just podcasters, it's just other people on the internet, but they're like going to the Catholic religion. You kind of like, it's wild. It's growing pretty quickly. You know, it's going to like Orthodox, and then it's going to the Roman Catholic Church after that, shortly after that. I mean, I'm seeing these people abandon, you know, something they just converted to another, you know.
Well, I mean, that's the logical conclusion when you have someone like Candace exposing the infiltration of Zionism within the evangelical movement or Protestantism. Where are you going to go? Ultimately to one of those. And what's funny is like, oh, she's speaking the truth. She's exposing a Babylonian pedophile cult, only to usher everybody into another Babylonian pedophile cult. I know it only happened in the 2000s, but go take a look at the Vatican and what they're up to. I think it's just a different, you know, face of this major cult that's going on.
Man. Wow, man. Any more, you got any more quotes from
this
book?
I'll finish for this. This will be a little bit of a read here, but it's Russia's mission to be the forefront of the Great Awakening. It's the very end. It's literally what we've all been talking about this whole story. Okay. Finally, the most important pole of the Great Awakening is intended for Russia. Despite the fact that Russia is partly involved in Western civilization throughout the Enlightenment culture to the Tsarist period under the Bolsheviks, and especially after 1991, at every stage, its antiquity as well as in present, the deep identity of Russian society is deeply distrustful of the West, especially of liberalism and globalization. Nominalism is deeply alien to the Russian people and its very foundations. Russian identity has always been prioritized in the common, the clan, folk, church, tradition, nature, nation, not nature, and power, and even communism represented a bit artificial in class terms, a collective identity opposed to the bourgeoisie individualism. All right. So again, he's still saying the goodness of communism and collectivism, right, against individualism. Dugan hates individualism, okay, which is a Western Enlightenment principle, okay. Russians stubbornly rejected and continue to reject nominalism in all its forms as common platform for both the monarchist and Soviet periods. After the failed attempt to integrate into the global community in the 1990s, thanks to the failure of liberal reforms, Russian society became even more convinced to the extent of which globalism, individual attitudes, and principles are alien to Russians. This is what determines the general support for Putin's conservative and sovereign course. Russians reject the Great Reset both from the right and from the left. Again, Dugan pushes transhumanism and the technocracy and androids, okay, which is funny about all this. He even does it in this book, okay. So he's trying to say that Russia embraces what? Traditionalism and collectivism and for the good of the nation, right? That's what he's trying to put forth, but at the same time, he's for his own version of transhumanism, okay. So let me finish here. There's justified sympathy among Russians for Trump and a parallel deep disgust for his liberal opponents. On Biden's side, the attitude that Russia is quite symmetrical. He and the globalist elites in general view Russia as the main civilization opponent, stubbornly refusing to accept the vector of liberal progressivism and fiercely detecting its political sovereignty and its identity. Of course, even today, Russia does not have the complete and coherent ideology that could pose a serious challenge to the Great Reset. In addition, the liberal elites entrenched at the top of society are still strong and influential in Russia, and liberal ideas, theories, and methods still dominate the economy, education, culture, and science. All of this weakens Russia's potential, disorients society, and sets the stage for growing international contradiction. But on the whole, Russia is the most important, if not the main, the pole of the Great Awakening. This is exactly what all Russian history has led up to, expressing an inner conviction that Russians are facing something great and decisive in the dramatic situation in the end. In their power to prevent an imperial renaissance in Russia, accordingly, we need exactly that, an imperial renaissance, not to impose our Russian Orthodox truth on the other peoples, cultures, and civilizations, but to revive, fortify, and defend our identity, to help others in their own renaissance, to fortify and defend their own as much as we can. Russia is not the only target of the Great Reset, although in many ways our country is the main obstacle to the execution of their plans. But in our mission to be the Kachion, the one who withholds, preventing the arrival of the last evil in the world. However, in the eyes of the globalists, other traditional civilizations, cultures, and societies are also to be subject to dismantling, reformatting, and transforming into an undifferentiated global cosmopolitan mass. In the near future, be replaced by the new post-human forms of life, organisms, mechanisms, or their hybrids. Therefore, the imperial awakening of Russia is called upon to be a signal for a universal uprisings of peoples and cultures against the liberal globalist elites. The rebirth as an empire, as an orthodox empire, Russia will set an example for other empires, the Chinese, the Turks, the Persians, the Arabs, the Indians, as well as Latin America, African, and the European. Instead of the dominance of the single globalist empire of the Great Reset, the Russian awakening should be the beginning of an era of many empires, reflecting and embodying the richness of human cultures, traditions, religions, and value systems. Final paragraph.
Wow.
Great awakening means that we both figured out the essence of that fatal, both murderous and suicidal strategy of progress as the globalist liberal elites understand it. And if we understand it, then we are capable of explaining it to others. The awakened can and must awaken everyone else. And if we succeed in this, not only will the Great Reset fail, but a just judgment will be passed upon those who've made it their goal to destroy humanity, first in spirit and now in body.
Whoa.
There you go.
Wow. I kind of want to read this book.
Well, it's interesting also on that one paper from 95, his philosophy, what he wants to see Russia as political movement, he calls it national Bolshevikism.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he calls it. So it's interesting to watch people like Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson expose the Bolsheviks. Meanwhile, the guy that's kind of pulling the strings in their ideology, that's exactly what he wants to usher in to Mother Russia.
Yeah, very much so. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't say it better myself.
It's nuts. Like the hypocrisy is crazy.
He rails against the value, and I have issues obviously with the values of Fabian socialism in America, right? Kind of like Enlightenment liberalism to a degree, right? It has its pros and cons as an American. obviously. As the forefront of individualism in the world, right? That's what America's known for. Okay. But what he's trying to sell isn't any better. All right. And so he's putting forth, that he even says so himself, the West in their enlightened individualism is worse. And the reason why we have the Epstein class, the reason why we have all the world's ills and everything like that, and the Great Reset and all that, the Kabbalah and the Talmud are better. And as Ben said, Bolshevikism, when blended with nationalism, is better.
And I also want to point out this is it's amazing how dishonest the mainstream alternative media that are in Candace's or Tucker's camp are, because this takes 20 minutes to research and not one of them talks about it. Just like not one of them talks about Tucker's 30+ year personal relationship with the demon Peter Thiel, who's literally trying to build the beast system or the surveillance state.
Tucker's called out he's for JD Vance today, right?
There you go. The traditional movement. You called it, Stephen.
Jeez.
I mean,
isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's not good. I'm getting sick and tired of it. It's like, man, golly, how long can I do this? Is it going to be like this forever? I think so.
No, I think it's going to end eventually. I think Jesus is going to return sooner rather than later. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I know how you feel, though. I feel that way. It's like, how many times do we come out here and discuss all this? I mean, at the end of the day, only the Bible matters. Only the gospel matters. Because, I mean, like, again, like you said, Ben, it doesn't take very long to read this and figure this out, right? But these people, that's what they do for a living, supposedly, allegedly. Alex Jones has the documents. I don't think he's ever read them. He has them, And so, but that's all they do is they go on and they blah, 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 these same platitudes and these same talking points. It's just insanity to me. I mean, Putin has a deep relationship with Chabad Lubavitch.
Oh, yeah. There's that one video that I pointed out earlier where you have that rabbi in Chabad Lubavitch saying that Putin runs everything through us when it comes to the Middle East. And publicly, he's making anti-Zionist statements. So makes sense unless it's all one big magic trick. Remember, in order for them to carry out their plans, they need to manufacture the consent of their population, of the region that they're in control of. So they'll just spit whatever lies they need to spit in order to guide their sheep in a certain direction. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're all connected. They all work together within the World Economic Forum. Putin was a young global leader. Once again, they don't like to talk about that, why they promote Putin. It's all one big facade magic trick, if you ask me.
Hey, where does Dugan come into this whole, like, does he even talk about the UFO stuff? Does he get into anything like that?
S90 might be more able to answer that question. I don't remember offhand.
So I actually looked into this. Now, granted, it was a quick Google search, so I could be wrong. He rejects the idea that these are visitors from outside our galaxy.
That would
in the
seem
material
about
world.
right. That would seem about right.
He's got more of a metaphysical approach to it, which would line up with Theosophy, right?
Yeah, that would seem about right. That's what I would think, just based off of my knowledge. That's what he would put forth, and that's what he would push. And so, Dugan has gone back and forth of his love and hatred for Donald Trump. And he really does not like Bibi Netanyahu. And so, again, I mentioned Konstantin Malafiev earlier in Sargrad TV. Konstantin Malafiev right now is saying, why don't you just go ahead and just nuke Ukraine? Just get it all over with, right? And it's like, what? But I mean, that's their attitude, So, I mean, they don't want, you have Tucker saying Israel's going to do the Samson option, right? Which would be horrible if they did. But would it be just as horrible if Russia wiped out Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, even with Hitler, like all these white nationalists like to think Hitler is this good guy. Meanwhile, he's an occultist. Mm-hmm. And what happened as a result of World War II? 20 million white Christians were killed in Europe. So make sense.
Or how many Christians were killed by Stalin?
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know, man. Like, what are your thoughts, Steven? We've been talking about a lot, man. What are you thinking?
Oh, with all that, man, I think it falls in line kind of with what, Barbara Marx Hubbard talks about with them being like this pale horse. It's kind of like, is like that's along the lines, right? Like what you guys are talking about, you're just, you know, peace taken from the earth and all this kind of stuff. But um I think the New Age has this strong belief in reincarnation. So if you go on doing the things that Hitler did, that's what I'm comparing this stuff to, right? It's like this genocide that takes place, but it's necessary, and the people accept it. The people that are a part of it is what I'm saying, right? And it becomes a movement, right? Where everyone either people either turn and they don't look, or people are for it, right? Like, so I think that has something to do with the shift when these things, come to play. I mean, they've talked about it. They've talked about if you're in the way, or if you're not for it, or you're in the way, like you're going to get taken out. So I don't know.
Oh yes. I mean, it's
You get what I'm
definitely
saying?
you know. Yeah, I've talked about that. That's how they feel. And they're like, well, you'll just reincarnate. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll just come back. Or, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
That's how they look at it. As you and I have discussed. I mean, they even look at it like when a child is raped in a existent life, the rapist and the child came to agreement that this would occur and that they would live through that life circumstance. And that is taught in the New Age. It's rife in the New Age. And not all New Agers believe that, but it is taught as far as people having past lives and people, having pre-existence, right? And so just imagine how arrogant and non-sympathetic and empathetic that is. Like, how could you tell somebody who's been molested as a child you agreed to go through that molestation before you were even born?
Yeah.
To be honest, I used to be open to that being a possibility when I was a New Ager, right? So imagine how arrogant I was how sick that is, to think of
Right.
something like that, right? There's a possibility, right? It's crazy.
I found it wild too. I was watching one of Constance Cumby's interviews, and she was talking about someone that she had ran into or whatever that was a part of the New Age movement. She knew this woman was in the New Age movement because of buzzwords that she learned from reading the New Age books, and so she talks to her off on the side or whatever, and they're going over the principles of kind of like what they believe, and karma was this one that was at it was superior to the others, and basically that there is no sin, like separation is is considered one of the only sins, right?
At-one-ment, right? Instead of atonement, right?
Right. And it's like that karma is what plays out as negativity to others in this world. So if you get hit by a bus, or if you get shot, it's because you did something along the lines, something to where you deserved it, or it was because of how karma worked through other people's lives. I don't know. It's a wild concept, right?
I would love to read this from one of Dugan's essays right here. This is really interesting. It says, others oppose the ordinariness of everydayness with the secret energy of race, the noise of blood. Against mixing and defamatory, they raise laws of purity and new sacredity. A return to the golden age, the great return. Nietzsche, Heidegger, Evola, Hitler, Mussolini draped the Gnostic will in national racial teaching. It is quite right that the communists didn't care much for the workers, nor Hitler for the Germans, but not out of cynicism. Both were obsessed with a deeper, more ancient, more absolute abjuration, the common Gnostic spirit, the secret and terrible light of the left-hand path. What workers, what Aryans, the point is totally different.
Wow.
So again, it just depends on how you wield it. Same nonsense again, dude. Like, it's like, Oh my god.
Well, so do you think there he's kind of comparing those people as like a Christ in some sort of way?
In a
Like talking
way,
it from
yeah.
the perspective of it being an office, that these people kind of came through and they did these things. I don't know, because that's kind of like how they view that concept. That's interesting.
Or
So
did
he's advocating for Hitler. He's advocating for what they did.
Well, I think what he's saying is it's not because he didn't like the Germans or because the Bolsheviks or the communists didn't like the workers. It's because they were actually driven by this occult knowledge, this gnosis, and that's why they did what they did.
Wow.
But he's not saying it's
Wow.
inherently evil.
Oh
as
no,
we
he was
would-
already
Right.
covered
Yeah.
for it.
yeah, as we would say it's evil.
Right.
But but he's like, I mean, he brings up Julius Evola, right? The occultist, right? He brings up the philosopher Heidegger, right? And so he's bringing up he's blending philosophers with occultists. And he's
Well-
pretty much saying this is, like he brought up Nietzsche, and so he's like, these are to Dugan, and Bannon, all them love Julius Evola. To them, they're like the greats, right? The keepers of the knowledge, as Bannon would say. My friend Jeff Shepard from Right on Radio pulled this up, and we found it in Alice Bailey's writing, Next Man Up. That's how they look at it, is one great leader falls, you can be the next one. It's your turn, step up, right?
Are they like paving the way for the actual Antichrist generation upon generation?
I mean, that's how we would kind of look at it as Christians, but how they would look at it would be as they're paving it into the utopia.
Right.
And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, as I was doing a little research, especially those who followed the left-hand path when he was talking about all those leaders, they view everything as evil. The prison planet's all evil. And in order for them to fix it, it's all about tearing it down. Complete
Correct, yes.
chaos. So you can see how each one of those leaders, through blood and war and all the type of stuff, that's what they were actually trying to do. So he would say it's a good thing.
Yes, yes. That's how through chaos brings order. Through
Right?
order
Yeah.
can bring chaos. Yes.
That kind of makes sense now with the whole alien narrative, right? Especially from like the New Age perspective. Well, it's really sophisticated. There's like, I don't know, 40, 50 different species apparently, or whatever. It's like stupid. But Dugan, I found something here, and it says that you're right. He does have like this mystical kind of view of these things, right? Which is why I think they changed the terminology to like non-human intelligence, UAPs, or whatever it is. But he calls the aliens Xenos, and primarily they're spiritual or ideological forces such as liberalism, modernism, and Western globalization that seek to subvert traditional Russian and Eurasian cultures. So it's like an archonic, he's thinking of it like as, I guess, like an archonic force that's manipulating these places, or Western globalization and modernism and liberalism. I don't know. It's weird.
He would believe that. He believed that it's antithetical, and he believed that they would be agents of the left-hand path, bringing in the Great Reset, which awakens the people, primarily Russia, to bring forth the false Great Awakening. That's how he looks at. He looks at him as all occultists look at him as necessary evil, right? They're necessary to bring forth what is going to occur.
I'd like to ask you a question, John, because you know more about this Atlantean culture based off your research on the New Age and Theosophy and all that. The way Dugan, to me, describes, Mother Russia and the traditional movement is similar to how Lemuria is described in Theosophy, spiritualism, traditional, and he uses the West and describes it the same way Atlantis was described in that mythology. Am I on point with that, or would you agree with that?
I would say that, yeah, it's very similar to Thomas Hobbes and Leviathan versus Behemoth. if we're, you know, I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, that's why I titled my Dugan series. Let me go back and look at it because I want to get it exactly. But yeah, that would be how it was, how he does frame it, as borrowing from Thomas Hobbes and Leviathan versus Behemoth, which were both in the Bible, obviously, in Job, but kind of looking at the powers of traditionalism versus liberalism. You know, and so I think he's borrowing directly from Thomas Hobbes. But I mean, I could be mistaken there, but no, actually, no, I think Dugan directly has said Leviathan versus Behemoth. So, you know, that wouldn't, but you guys talk for a minute. Let me see if I can find something.
Yeah. So I'm looking here. So say that again, Ben. What does he kind of talk about with Russia? Because I have the root races up right here, and it kind of sounds like.
Yeah. So I'll pull it up right here. I got it on my phone, and it sounds like the way Lemuria was described and the way Atlantis was described, but he gives Russia a different name. So he would be referring to Atlantean, a maritime seafaring power historically currently associated with the United States and the UK and NATO. In Dugan's philosophy, Atlantis represents secularism, capitalism, scientific rationalism, individualism, rootless cosmopolitanism, whereas the Eurasian, you know, order is a continental land power with Russia at the center, allied with nations against the Western hegemony. These societies are characterized as traditional values, authoritarianism, holistic governance, that word holistic, and spiritualism. And if that lines up with Theosophy and the 7 root races, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, the 6 root race pretty much it mentions a lot about intuitive humanity, you know, psychic humanity, unified, you know, oneness, spiritualism, higher being, and then you start to transition into the 7th root race. But then again, these root races aren't officially here, so we can't really specifically classify what exactly they're going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're in the future still. So there's ideas that are out there. I mean, it's their ideas of the root races, but I'm saying from my standpoint.
So that would actually play into what I was mentioning, but both of y'all saying is that you have kind of like the Leviathan versus Behemoth. You have the perfect versus the chaotic breakdown, right? That Hobbes had written about. And Dugan uses that and changes it to the Atlantean Great Reset versus the Continental Great Awakening. Russia representing the traditional kind of the continental or the land people versus the sea people representing progressivism and enlightenment type thinking, which he'll say the West is. So it's just a retelling of that. And again, in the Bible, we have the beast from the sea and the beast from the land. The beast from the sea representing the Gentile nations, and the land representing Israel, the Jewish people. And so you have that juxtaposition there as well, too, right? And so Dugan actually, interestingly enough, has it reversed, if you really think about it. So, you know, and we know that, you know, with the Great Reset, you know, that is being framed as being driven by Western powers, right? The European Union, the United Nations, which even, you know, Bailey said that the United Nations would not, if the United Nations would succumb to Zionism, and I'm paraphrasing here, they would run out their usefulness. Okay. And so, you know, a lot, you know, I would put the UN, a lot of Christians would put the UN as kind of like this future, like Bill Cooper did, this future kind of that's going to control everything, be a totalitarian one world government type entity. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. It looks like that Bailey was right and that it's going to go by the wayside, at least the way it's looking. And so that kind of represents that Atlanteanism versus the coming continental, traditional great awakening that Dugan's talking about, saying it's going to be led by Mother Russia in conjunction with the United States, ultimately against Israel.
Well, that would line up with biblical prophecy, the
It would.
interpretation of it, where all the nations or the people turn on Israel. And like I said, it's all part of God's divine plans. I think that these powers and principalities have to lay out their plan before God. God either co-signs on it or doesn't, just like in the book of Job. But there is this, like I said, maybe the wrong word about manufacturing is there is a hidden hand behind it that is making it happen.
So who do you guys think right now, if with the players out there on the field, false prophet, Antichrist, who do you guys think right now? Because it seems like there's a lot of interesting things with BB and Trump, and also a couple other people. But
one last thing, S90 says Dugan has a very specific philosophy that there's always a great sea power and a great land power, and they are the geopolitical axis of any time period, which is true. But he thinks eventually Russia is the final representation of the continental land power that will end the Atlantean sea power. And free the world from a unipolar order that goes back and forth to a multipolar order, is how he looks at it. So S90 also mentions Atlantis and Tyrrhenia, Greece and Troy, Carthage and Rome was how Dugan would look at it. Okay, just as a side, I just want to.
So break that down for me. What do you mean?
Well, that's what I've been explaining the whole time with the Atlantean versus the continental, the land versus the sea. Dugan, I think, borrowing from Thomas Hobbes, Leviathan versus Behemoth. And like we see in the Bible, the beast from the sea and the beast from the land, right? And so, the representation of liberalism and individualism and progressivism and enlightening thinking to Dugan is the Atlantean sea people. And that is the representation of the West. And the traditionalist, collectivist, land people represent Russia, right? And kind of like the powers against the West, right? The East, right, is a representation of traditionalism and collectivism, which is, the antithesis of kind of like your individualistic enlightenment type Western ideals. And so that's how he frames it. Hopefully I'm making sense and I'm not boring people, but that's just how he looks at it. And so, he, but anyway, to answer your question, who I think, again, I don't know for sure. I don't know. I'm not going to say here I've gotten into thus saith the Lord or anything. But if I had to put who I think it is, and I've discussed who I think it is, I believe the Antichrist is Donald John Trump. I believe the false prophet is Jared Kushner, where at one time I thought the false prophet was Elon Musk. But now I think it is Jared Kushner because his constant praise for Donald Trump. And him being a technocrat and him having a religious Jewish background with Chabad Lubavitch. So all of that together, I think that he would fit the bill for that. So your Zionist Christians love Jared Kushner. The Jews love Jared Kushner. So, it kind of fits with me for that. I'm actually, and sometimes you could actually convince me that Jared Kushner is more likely is the false prophet than Donald Trump being the Antichrist. You could, on certain days, have me hold that position where I am more affirming Kushner as being the false prophet, even at this time period, than Trump being the Antichrist. Now, I still think Trump is the Antichrist. He's my number one candidate. He's my number one candidate. Doesn't mean he is. He's my number one candidate. He's been my number one candidate. I haven't changed on that. All right. Now, who do I think the world is going to think is the Antichrist? Or at least the world is going to come against. They're not going to say this person is the Antichrist, but they're gonna blame this person as the world's ills that they have to come and dispose. I believe that person is Bibi Netanyahu. I reject that Putin is the Antichrist. I seriously doubt that Eric Dugin is the Antichrist. My number one candidate and my only candidate right now is, I'll say this: Trump, Kushner, Elon Musk for Antichrist, but that's farther down the list. But I would put that it's Trump and some unknown person we don't know. Those are my top two candidates. It's either Trump or someone that we don't know yet. Okay, those are my two choices. I'd put Kushner and Musk as Antichrist below someone who's on the scene. None of us have any idea who it is. All right. So that's how I look at it. But false prophet, I'm very confident. I think is Jared Kushner.
Yeah, he's playing a weird role.
He is. Yeah. I actually agree with your second statement. I don't know who it is. And the only reason I'm a little hesitant with Donald Trump is that he's kind of destroyed his image, right? And I think the Antichrist kind of brings everybody together, stops the war.
That's a common like CMP misconception of Left Behind Antichrist eschatology. The world does not love the Antichrist or follow the Antichrist until after he receives the mortal head wound, and after the false prophet drives the world to worship the Antichrist. It doesn't happen until then. See, I used to think that the world, there's not enough people that love the Antichrist. Trump can't be, but scripture says the world doesn't turn towards the Antichrist. And I can read it directly, and I will get it up, into that moment. Because then who can make war with the beast, right? If, again, you could hate Trump and not believe that he's this person, he's been tarnished by Epstein and all this other stuff. But if he gets, the mortal head wound, Jesus Christ returns, right? He gets the mortal head wound, and then he comes back, and and on top of that, he defeats Israel. A lot of that's going to go out the window really quick. And the biggest thing I have to that, if he is, is the way the world united when they thought he brought peace in Gaza, when CNN was celebrating him, all the media was celebrating him when he was over in Israel. How quickly the world got behind him right then and there, it can happen again. It can happen again. So that's my only counter to that, Ben. And I'll get the scripture up, but you could be very right. It may not be him at all, and I could be very wrong.
So I have a question, though, because I actually thought about this too. What's your take on this? I often thought there's a lot of signs, public signs, that would point to Trump being the Antichrist, especially those who are looking for the Antichrist.
Okay.
And there is that passage that says, for even if possible, the elect will be deceived, right? So what if that deception is that Trump is the Antichrist? So when the real Antichrist comes, the believers go, well, this must be Jesus. And that would be the actual Antichrist.
I can't disagree with you there.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's what I thought.
That's wild, man.
Because once again, he had a post that went viral where he was talking about Trump possibly being the Antichrist.
If you watch the actual clip, and that was what was pushed later, and what was saying that he did not, because he walked that back later too. The clip was that he put it out there and then immediately crapped all over it.
Tucker
what was that about?
Yes, he put it out and then immediately went, well, no, he can't be. And this is why he can't be. So that's what I have to that, was he put it out there and then immediately, if you actually watch the clip of him talking about it in his monologue, immediately was like, well, no, he can't be, and here's why.
Yeah, that is interesting stuff. But
So,
I mean, one thing is
disarming it. So.
Yeah. And the one thing I can say is they're all on Team Satan.
Yeah,
agreed.
Regardless of what role they play, who the Antichrist is, I think everybody within a position of power or influence, they made the Faustian bargain. I think they serve Satan and ultimately that greater agenda of, serving the Dark Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like very thankful, and I should be more thankful for like being saved, for knowing the Lord and knowing the things I know from the Bible and seeing the world through the discernment of the Holy Spirit. It's a blessing, man. And I hope it gets out there to more people. That's a strong hope, and I think that with shows like that you guys have, it's just, God's working through all of this stuff. And I think he's put us in a position to talk about these matters, and we do a good job. I think you guys do a great job with your platforms and all that stuff,
Stephen.
man.
Let me read from Revelation 13 real quick. Just I just want to get this out there. Let's get this out there. And then I won't say nothing else. I'll be quiet.
You're good.
Is Revelation 13... I'll just start with one. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This is, I believe, the Gentile Antichrist, right? And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet was unto the feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion. And a dragon gave him power, which I believe is Satan, and a seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads that was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So it's right there. All the world wondered after the beast after they see him getting that mortal, like unto a mortal head wound, and it is healed. Right now, I believe, and I think Aaron, I believe in a mid-tribulational rapture. I'm not a pre-trib. Okay, I believe when Jesus returns for the rapture and he gives that mortal head wound to the Antichrist. Okay, we'll see. I'm not saying for sure, but that is how I look at scripture. Okay. And so but yeah, so that is when the world marvels and wonders after the beast, and the false prophet directs the worship of the world to the Antichrist is at that moment.
Okay.
Mm.
And I actually learned that from
Now,
Adrian
John,
Rogers, to be fair. So
I want to ask you this, since we're on the topic. Do you think that this moment right here cross references with where the 7th king becoming the 8th king in Revelation 17, the harlot, where that 7th king, becomes the 8th, kind of like this king ruling in this city of the harlot.
Yeah,
right.
Apollo. Which I would say is Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, the Antichrist betrays Israel. Jerusalem is destroyed. It's judged. It gets 2 scoops of God's wrath. And then the Antichrist takes the system of the harlot for itself. And through that, you get the mark of the beast and the control of the world. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's wild.
Now
I see it the same way.
So let me
I'm just saying, I think Trump is a bootlegged Antichrist. I've just said
he might be. He might be.
If he is the Antichrist, I will be so upset. Come on.
Trump.
He might be. But I think Netanyahu's the bootleg. The world is going to blame him. The world is going to blame him. They won't call him the Antichrist directly, but they will pour all their hate into him. And that's my guess from what I've seen. I don't think it's Putin. Who do you think, Stephen?
How I see the Antichrist is this as and I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be taking something from the world and using it to draw my conclusions of what Scripture's talking about. But since I've been digging into the New Age stuff, this world teacher, it sounds like someone that would be knowing. It's almost like wisdom for the world. This figure.
But that would be the false prophet, and
it could be. It could be. You could be absolutely right.
Because Antichrist is more of a political
and the false
figure.
prophet. I agree with you there. Like the false prophet does what? Gives life unto the image of the beast. There's some sort of Kabbalah reference there with the golem and all this kind of stuff. Something's happening there where there's this kind of magi, this magician, this false prophet, right? That's on the scene doing something to.
You think they're a transhumanist? You think they use technology?
They could have the technology, right? It's kind of like in the movies, especially Dune, right? Like the one king, right? Kind of plays this Nimrod figure in the first Dune movie. His right-hand man is like the psychic guy. Like his eyes roll back in the back of his head. He does computing and he serves the king. I see it as a counterfeit to how John the Baptist was for Jesus Christ, right? John the Baptist baptized Jesus, right? There was
a forerunner,
right? Like the false prophet is going to do something similar to the Antichrist.
Is there a forerunner Antichrist? Because Ben thinks the forerunner Antichrist is Donald Trump. I think the forerunner Antichrist is Bibi Netanyahu. Who do you think the possible forerunner is?
The forerunner.
I used to think the forerunner was Malay, not Malay, El Salvador. Help me out, Bukele.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Steve.
Well, no, I like your thoughts with Trump and stuff. So if I was to pick a forerunner, then I would probably choose Donald Trump or Jared Kushner. One of those guys. I don't think Bibi in so much, but I'm just, intrigued with what Kushner's doing with New Gaza. Is New Gaza going to be that second Babylon? I know we've talked about this a little bit. Jerusalem being the first Babylon makes a lot of sense. But then there's a few other places that could be Babylon.
So do you think Kushner could be the Antichrist? And the forerunners who the world, we're using Alice Bailey's term, is who the world, or they set up a like system like the Antichrist.
It could be Donald Trump. It could be that Donald Trump, gets to this point where, let's say, he wants to run for office again, and he's destroying democracy, right? But in a way to where it's a conquering and a conquer type vibe.
Maybe I'm wrong. Now.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, like it could play out to where he kind of plays as this Antichrist that does fall to someone else, or to, I don't know, the humanity, right? Like the rise of humanity coming up and defeating a dominionist, of some sort or whatever. I don't know. Again, this is why I like talking about this kind of stuff.
I'm with Tim. It's Joe Rogan.
It's Joe. It's the alien.
But on a serious note,
I'm doubling down on Trump's Antichrist because all y'all are against me. My friend Aaron Fox is against me. Y'all against me. I'm doubling down. I'm tripling down here. I'm throwing out my chips on the table. All right.
It's like what Ben said. He's like, I like your second point. We don't know. But I'm with you, man. I am with you. It's there. I see what you see.
What about this idea? Someone brought this up in the chat, and I often wondered about this. What if it's some type of hybrid? What if it's a Nordic alien that is the Antichrist? Is that a possibility in any way?
Now we're just having here. All right.
Well, it's a good point because, and I see what you're saying, John, because I feel like, and Ben, hear me out. Like I feel like we're being pulled into believing that this is a figure that's to come, right? Like an alien or a hybrid or something. Like it can't just be a man,
as in the days of Noah. Like right? Exactly. It can't just be a man, right?
But it's a possibility, though. But I'm just saying, like, this is the vibe I get too.
And everybody, again, because of Left Behind, it's supposed to be a leader of the European Union, right? So so let me ask you this: where do you think Mystery Babylon is, or the harlot? I think it's Jerusalem. Your three choices throughout history, and I think the sister city or port city is Gaza, even though Gaza doesn't have any hills. It is the sea part, right? But anyway, I digress. But
Gaza will have 7 residential areas. I don't know if those are going to be referenced as hills, but I found that interesting.
But nonetheless, though, your three choices throughout modern history, the third one's the most newest one, is you had Jerusalem, Rome, Rome was more Protestantism through historicism, but you could argue it existed in the early church. In New York City, representation of America is kind of like the Left Behind CMP third option for the harlot, for Mystery Babylon, right? Or Babylon itself, which I just think is the most ludicrous. So you have 4, I guess. I think it's Jerusalem. What say y'all?
Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I'm going to step out of this one. I haven't looked into it too much. No, I'm like wherever it is, I know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Preach the gospel.
But if you had to guess,
Jerusalem or Rome?
Okay.
The Vatican.
That's a good one.
But you wouldn't be shocked if it was Jerusalem, though. Just like I wouldn't be shocked if it was Vatican, Rome. I wouldn't be shocked.
Oh, not at all.
I would be shocked if it was New York City. But that's just me.
Right.
Scripture, but it's just me.
I think Washington, D.C. may be a better candidate.
They always say New York City because it sits on 7 hills, 7 boroughs. Not 7 boroughs.
Oh, it does?
It's 7 hills. Yeah, let me look it up.
Oh, my goodness. Didn't know that. Okay. That's crazy.
Well, where does the Antichrist comes and sits in the temple, correct?
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
And that temple would be in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So is Mystery Babylon separate from that, or is it all tied together in the same spot?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
So yes, New York City is called the City of 7 Hills.
Oh wow, that's wild. That's wild. Jerusalem, I think, could be the harlot, right? But then I still get this some sort of intuitive instinct of new Gaza is going to be Mystery Babylon, simply because I feel like they can build some sort of artificial intelligence system there that's superior to all the other systems, and then the world would have to adapt to New Gaza's plan or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you got the Board of Peace.
Yep.
Is connected to that kind of stuff too. On Google it says that there's 5 to 15 seats on the board, but the median for that is 10. So I'll pick 10. I don't know how many seats are on there, but so it just seems like there's potential for it.
One thing
There's
I do
7
know,
residential areas there, so it's like 7 hills. So I mean, I don't know.
the one thing I do know is that RGZ is losing his mind right now.
RGZ.
Because he's a Satan short season person.
Really?
Hey, look, I'm gonna get destroyed here. Okay. Little seasonists, you might want to do a little research in the Gnostic beliefs of the little season and post millennialism. You might want to take a look. You might want to take a look in that there are Catholics who are little seasonists as well too. You might want to take a look. So,
Well, what's wild? It was kind of wrapping that idea back around to what we were talking about with, Dugin and all this kind of stuff. This millennial reign that they want to bring in, or this utopia they want to bring in. It's heaven on earth, right? It's like, think of like this counterfeit millennial reign kingdom of the Antichrist before Jesus actually comes back and establishes his kingdom here on earth. It's like that to me fits something that can come down the line with Satan's little season falling into that kind of deception, right? Like, have you put any thought into that?
I mean, I wish you might want to try to get on Wayne McCrory for Satan's little season, or even Lore, but I traced it back to godlike production methods, message board in Tartaria and mud floods, and you even have Tartaria. S90 could speak more to this, but the kingdom of the Tartars being pushed by Dugan, like I hate to say it, but like little seasons need to do some research. They need to do some research into the occultic beliefs of post-millennial eschatology and who it's being pushed for. Like, a lot of people like to push towards Pete Hegseth and his previous Third Temple speech, and him being a previous Zionist, right? When in reality now he's a post-millennialist. He's a post-millennialist dominionist. He's goes to the Calvinistic Doug Wilson-esque Presbyterian church, and so he's changed. He's changed. For everybody likes to show that Third Temple speech of Hegseth. That's not Hegseth anymore. At least what's being presented to us. So, people need to do a lot of research into post-millennialism. Now, I don't believe post-millennialists are heretics. I think they're just wrong. The only eschatology that I think is heresy is full preterism, that Jesus has already returned, which Paul says himself that it is. That we live on the new heaven and new earth. This is the best it gets. This is the best it gets. Okay. That's a heresy to me. I hope not. I just have issues with Satan's little season. I've done a lot of research into it. I've done shows addressing it, and post-millennial eschatology. The only really positive post-millennial eschatology was maybe some Puritans had, where again, they believe that Jesus only comes back once. There is no millennial kingdom. Well, not all post-millennialists. Satan's little seasons don't necessarily believe that, but post-millennialism's historical beliefs was that Jesus only comes back at the end. Like, we make the world better, and then we hand it to Jesus. All right, you kind of get the 7 mountains dominionism, 7 mountains, 7 spears of theosophy from that. So there's various degrees of post-millennialism. But Satan's little season falls into post-millennialism, and it is, it is the modern representation of it is occultic. I mean, Paul, from understanding conspiracy, was debating reincarnation. And that was infiltrating little season eschatology. So, like, I don't know what else to say. So, I did a stream with Wayne McCoy on the occultism and little season eschatology and the Tartarian mud floods. And it's in the Q Awakening map, Stephen. Is it not?
It is. It's interesting, and it makes me think too, like some of the thoughts of Tartaria could connect to like theosophical beliefs of Atlantis. Something that was of high technological advancement, right? Like a civilization or of some sort. I don't know. It's weird. I haven't sifted through everything, but or not even that much, but there's just some interesting connections with a lot of the other material I'm reading. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I thought I've heard that in little season stuff. So yeah.
And I will say Spirit and Truth Wendy says he was debating resurrection and not reincarnation. They were going back and forth on that, so they were talking about the resurrection of people who did not believe and getting a second chance during Satan's little season. Where's that in the Bible? I missed that. And so like, again, like I understand, but there was a debate. I'm not incorrectly categorizing what Paul was talking about there. Like there was a discussion, there was a debate, there was a discussion of the use of reincarnation. I know Paul Stobbs used to be a Gnostic. I understand that. I've had discussions with Paul. All right. But to be fair, there was that discussion in there, whether you want to admit it or not. I'm sorry, it's true. And it's steeped again in New Age belief systems. It is.
Yeah, I get my eschatology framework from the late, great Dr. Michael Heiser. And while I'm a premillennialist, he made the point that you can pull from scripture and push whatever eschatology view you have. And to me, what that means is regardless of where we are on the eschatological timeline, guess what hasn't changed? What God and Jesus has called us to do.
Amen.
Right.
Amen,
so
brother.
whether in Satan's short season or in his premillennial reign, we are to go out and baptize the nations in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that's by teaching them with love, that agape love.
That's it, brother.
Agreed.
That's it, man. Guys, thank you, man. This was a power stream. Thanks for joining me tonight. I figure it's a good time to wrap this thing up. You guys have anything you guys want to close out on? Go right ahead. Go with you, Ben.
Yeah, once again, Stephen, John, this was a pleasure. Everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us. You bring in a lot of good comments. It keeps it interesting, ideas to talk about it. And I think how I would like to end this is, everybody's focused on Zionism right now. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to Zionism, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You support the Zionist movement, guess what? Great. They can carry out their agenda. You oppose it. Great. Once again, that's suggested in prophecy that all the nations will turn on Israel. What goes on this earth is out of our control. We have powers, principalities, Satan. Above that, we have Jesus. Above that, we have God the Father. So if we really want to make a difference in this world, it's by preaching the gospel. It's with love and humility, telling everybody why we have hope in this fallen world. So yeah.
Right on, brother. Where can they check out all your stuff, man?
Oh,
you put out good work.
Yeah, at End of the World's News on YouTube, all one word, or End of the World News on Instagram or Spotify and iTunes. We have the videos up on Spotify and iTunes as well now.
Awesome, dude. John, man, thank you, man, for joining. I know it was a little late, but not even really that late. You came in and you shot the place up, man.
My apologies for being late. My apologies for shotting the place up. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay, man. I love you, man. And
I love you too.
I appreciate
I
the work you put into this stuff, man. It's years of research too. So
one more thing, John's on it before everybody else is on it.
Not always, but
a lot of times. I mean, we're pulling up old clips from Dugan back in 2024, 2023. You're spot on with so much of your research, and I actually enjoy a lot of it.
Thank you, brother. I'll read from Hebrews 9:27, and is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. So there is a debate of whether or not that we, as born again believers, face the bema seat of Jesus Christ before the millennial kingdom. And that is our quote unquote judgment. We go to heaven, and then that happens. And then non-believers, of course, get the white throne judgment, which is the judgment you do not want at the end of reported given time. So there's not a do-over. Sorry, there's just not scripturally. There's not one. And so it is what it is. Anyway, I just want to make that known. And what had been talked about, yes, there's a debate of Zionism this and Zionism that. We should focus on the gospel. I will say this, though, however, that there is rising hatred towards Jewish people. Guard your heart. Guard your heart. We're
Don't fall
called to
for it.
proselytize to them. We're called to show them the love of Christ. I'm not excusing what the government of Israel is doing, just like I'm not excusing what the government of America is doing. All right. And so again, just saying, just guard your heart. Guard your heart.
Thank you for saying that. I know I'm taking over Stephen's job right now, but I think that is so important.
Yeah, dude.
That we don't act out of hate.
Amen.
That's the main thing. God's watching what we do, how we treat others. And that's everybody.
Yeah, man. John, where can the folks check out all your stuff, buddy?
You can find me, and we read the documents on YouTube. We read the documents on Odyssey. I need to actually update my Odyssey Substack. And I'm going to be on with Ben soon. I'm going to go ahead and plug that. It's going to be a great conversation, brother. And Stephen, I need to have you on my channel sometime soon, brother.
You don't want me on your channel.
That is not true at all. Don't even say that. I'm just horrible about booking people. Just complete garbage. But thank you for having me on, brothers. I loved it. God bless everyone who's listening in the audience. Read your Bible more. Stay in the Word more. Pray never ceasing. Love your neighbor as yourself, and ultimately love God with all your mind, body, heart, and soul. God bless everyone who's listening.
That's right, Ben. Hey, hang out for me in the green room. We'll chat it up a little bit. But folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. It was awesome having these guys on, and the conversation was electric. Shout out to Wendy. Shout out to Tara. Shout out to Jeezy. Cindy. We got Morpheus in the house. We got Rebel for Jesus Christ. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Dunt, as always, good to see you. Anika, everyone. If I missed you, I love you. All right, appreciate everyone for supporting the show. If you want to support the show further than where you are right now, head on over to patreon.com/The Biblical Hitman and come support the channel over on YouTube as well. And hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, and come support the platform over on the audio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Spreaker, all of the places. But with all that said, folks, have a great night. See you next time.